What's going on, YouTube? Today I'm going to do a video on a topic that has recently come to my attention through a lot of comments that I've seen on some of the shorts that I've been posting. And this is interesting, and I think it's something that I'm sure a lot of knife enthusiasts have heard. And it's the idea that people don't think we use our knives. At least I've heard that, kind of pop up every maybe one in every 15 comments or one in every 20 comments. But now I've seen enough times to think that, okay, I should do a video to address this. And, I get these comments that are people like, oh, your knives are all brand new. You never use them. Why don't you use them? Or you should use them. Or, some variation of, oh, I actually use my knives. Why don't you, stuff like that. Very, up on their high horse kind of thing. And I wanted to do this video to explain why and how I keep my knives looking nice and new, despite using them, and some of the reasons for why they may not look like they're beat to hell all the time, because, surprise, I take care of my things, especially when I put money into them. So I want to use these two knives as an example, and I'm going to actually disassemble and clean and sort of maintain this Shaman like I do with all my knives, and show kind of how I revert them back to a very close to new looking appearance. It's very important to me, and it's just something I do. So we'll show you these two. So, since I bought it, I've, obviously been using this guy like I do with a lot of them. And I've been carrying this every chance I get. And so it's gotten a little bit more use, like in a smaller amount of time than others, because I really was excited to have it. And so you can kind of see that in the blade. It's reflected. I purposely haven't really cleaned it at all until now, because I wanted to kind of do this video, and honestly, I kind of like the way it looks with how it looks with that coating. But so you can clearly see it's got some use to it, right? The scales really aren't too worn, because I also don't disrespect them to the point where I'm doing crazy awful things to them. But you can see the blade has had its use, and I use them for things that I think they're made to do. I'm not using it as a pry bar or a screwdriver, because I don't want to damage the edge or damage the knife, right? I have a pry bar and I have a screwdriver for those functions, but this is for cutting, cutting purposes. So that's what you get, right? Blade gets a little bit marked up. Maybe there's some light scratches, probably not scratches, but it's definitely marked. It's definitely used, okay? And so then I want to show this knife, which I've had for several years. And when you look at it, it looks pretty darn close to brand new. And I would challenge you to decide overall which knife I have used more in my lifetime. Which knife has been used more? And you might be able to see where I'm going with this and pick the right answer, but it would look like the Shaman has clearly been used more than the 940. It looks like the 940 came right off the shelf, but you're gonna have to believe me with this. I've had this 940 for several years, and I have definitely, without a doubt, used it more than the Shaman. Easily, way more. And for all kinds of tasks too. This was kind of my sort of medium to heavy duty user outdoor before I got the Shaman and the Adamas. So, this has seen some stuff, but I take care of it. There's a little bit of scratching on there, but I maintain it. I maintain the edge. I make sure it's nice and sharp all the time. I clean it when I'm done using it. I, make sure to clean the handle. I take it apart. I disassemble it. I lube it up so it's nice and smooth. Like, I do all these things to get the knife nice and clean again. So, believe it or not, this is a user. Doesn't look like it, because I'm very methodical about what I do to keep these things nice and clean. There's some scratches on the clip, but that's kind of unavoidable. So, using the Shaman as an example, I'm going to go ahead now. Actually, there's one other thing I want to say about this. So the other thing is, I have several knives, and I know there's a lot of collectors and enthusiasts out there that have way more than me. Like, on my table right now, I have just like 4, normally I have a bunch right out, and I rotate through all of them. I have probably, 20 to 30. I don't remember the exact number, but I rotate through them pretty frequently. So I don't necessarily carry the same one every single day. I like to kind of change it up, and depending on what tasks I think I'm going to be needing that day, I'll pick a certain knife or a different one. But the point is, I rotate them a lot. So I'm not necessarily using one knife for every single task all the time. So you don't get that much wear on any one particular knife when you rotate them, right? If I'm cutting a few things a day with one knife, but then I shift that knife each day, say I'm only cutting a few things every week or every 2 weeks with a particular knife. So it takes a while to really, really wear on it unless I'm picking one in particular to use for a lot of tasks that are going to really wear on it. So that's another thing to keep in mind, that even though I am using them when I carry them, I don't carry the same one every single day. So the use gets spread out over a large period of time, right? So that, that's one thing to consider. And the other thing is, right now I'm in a very urban scenario. I don't live in the country. I don't live in the woods. I don't work in any kind of construction. I mean, I'm in healthcare, right? So I don't use my knife at work. I don't use it at school. I don't use it, in the city that much. Like the types of tasks that I need them for are different, than if you were in a scenario where, like, say when I was back in Wisconsin, like doing yard work all the time, or like out in the woods doing stuff, working in the garage. Like those types of activities tend to wear on a knife more than when you're opening packages or cutting tags, cutting bags, cutting labels, opening whatever it is, lighter duty things that I still very much need the knife for, but don't show up on the blade as much. So that's another thing as well to consider. But okay, so now I'm gonna take this guy apart, clean it, and kind of show the process of putting it back to its former brand new glory. So let's do that. So here's kind of a before shot, and I'll zoom in just so you can see kind of how dirty this guy is. And it's not awful, but it's, it's definitely not brand new looking. So we're going to take care of that real quick. So possibly the most important aspect of this is the magic eraser from Mr. Clean. And yeah, you can see him there. So this is what's going to get all that grime and streak marks off of this blade and make it look, I think, pretty darn close to brand new. So I just ripped one in half because I don't need the whole thing. And I'm going to, get it a little bit wet, kind of squeeze it, and then basically just scrub the blade with it. I'm not going to do this on camera because it's just going to be kind of difficult, but I'm going to show this is the before and you'll see the after in a second. So let's do that. Okay, so now I really hope you can appreciate the difference between that last clip and now, because honestly, this is as good or better than how it came to me straight from the factory. And I say that because it was actually a little bit smudged when it came. So all of the discoloration on the spine, all the streak marks and discoloration from the actual blade itself. Maybe there's a thumbprint because I just did that. The PVD kind of shows thumb smudges really prominently, so I'm trying not to actually touch the blade. But so you can see how it's pretty darn close to brand spanking new, and it really looks like it hasn't been used. So conceivably, I could hear someone saying, oh, you haven't even used this knife, but from the last clip that that's actually not true. So there's kind of the demonstration of how it's possible to make the knife look like it hasn't really been used. So let's go put this thing back together. All right, so I want to just give this final shot of everything taken apart before I put it all back together to just say one final thing. So I take this thing apart, I kind of scrub meticulously every single part, including the little screws, the liners and everything. You can see how dirty this cloth gets after, some of these things. This big marking right here is from the lock, the stop pin here. So, the parts get really dirty, and I believe that proper maintenance is really important, not only so that it looks nice, but so that it can continue to function properly. And last a long time, right? So I like to use this Benchmade Blue Lube cleanser. Stuff works great on a microfiber like this one, or even something like this would work great too. And then afterwards, I'll oil up the pivot with the Blue Lube. I'm kind of trying out different lubricants, so I'm going to try some Gunny Glide here. I've got some on the way. But that's the idea behind my cleaning process. So let's put this thing back together. So there you have it, folks. My kind of long-winded way of explaining and showing you how I keep my knives looking pretty darn nice and new. I mean, you look at that, and it's not that far from what it looked like, a few months ago when I first got it. And it's pretty satisfying being able to bring it back to that condition, despite having actually used it, which I think is really cool, and it's something that's important to me. May not be important to you, and if you want to keep your knives looking like a user, then by all means do it. And that's the other thing, is that if you do want to like buy a bunch of knives and collect them and not use them a single day of your life, that's absolutely okay. And you know what? It's your prerogative as a consumer. Because if you want to put that money into a product and you can then be free to either use it or not, or whatever. So don't let people on the internet kind of change the way you use your stuff, because at the end of the day, it is still your stuff. I personally like to use my knives. I think of them as tools, as very useful tools day to day. But I also like to keep them clean, and I like to keep them nice because I like nice things and I like my things to be nice. So that's all I've got for you guys today. Hopefully this was interesting and insightful, and at least a little bit informative as far as the cleaning process. So I will end it there, and please, as always, if you have any questions or concerns, leave them in the comments below. All right, take care.